to the stop the violence podcast. I have to be real with you. At this moment, I don't even know what I'm going to record about. It's the day before the podcast is going to be out, and I don't know. I have a couple ideas, but I don't know. Times have been weird lately. I'm also a little on edge because today I'm expecting a call from the police officer who dealt with our case when we were assaulted physically for peacefully holding signs in a public area on January 24th. I still haven't posted the video of that because I'm waiting to see what the police do first. But if you're listening to this in the future, that video might be already out, and if so, please share it around. I just want to spread the shame of these men because they're woman beaters, and it was honestly a hate crime. What else has been going on lately? Obviously, there's a lot of talk about what words we use in veganism. Is it good or bad to use the word Holocaust and stuff? And there's also been a lot of hype around that vegan teacher. A lot of non-vegan people have been making reaction videos to her because she has said some, what I think are possibly problematic things. And, I don't follow her. I really mainly follow and support people that are like Earthling Ed and Joey Carbstrong and vegan activists who don't bully groups of people and things like that. I don't have time in my life to follow every activist either, so, I don't have much to say about that vegan teacher because I haven't investigated it, but it's interesting to see her come up so much, and the good thing about that is that it's forcing non-vegan people to think about veganism. And, hopefully they're not just using this woman and their dislike for her as an excuse to stab animals. I don't really know. I honestly feel in my heart that it's more positive than not for her to be getting so much attention right now, just because the word veganism is getting into more people's brains as a result of it. And, I think most rational humans can understand, even if they don't like her, that doesn't mean that they shouldn't look into veganism, if that makes sense. So, all around, I'm pretty glad about it. As far as using the words like Holocaust, slavery, rape, etc. to describe what animals are going through, I'm personally not against it at all. But don't, take it from me. Listen to what some people who are victims of rape, who are vegan and who, support using the words have to say about it. Listen to, there's a guy that dodged the Holocaust, survived the Holocaust, who made FARM, which is Farm Animal Rights Movement, which has been around longer than PETA, and I forgot his name. Hold on, let me look him up. So here we go. I'm on farmusa.org, Farm Animal Rights Movement, which is the acronym of FARM. Farm Animal Rights Movement is a national nonprofit organization advocating for animal rights and veganism since 1976. For many years, we were the only national animal rights organization fighting for farmed animals. That's right, they were before PETA, and PETA started out only against, vivisection. They didn't even start out against, eating animals and stuff like that. And for whatever reason, I had never even heard of this until the Cosmic Skeptic did a podcast with the founder of FARM. Big shout out to Cosmic Skeptic, by the way. And the reason I'm bringing this up right now, so the guy is named Dr. Alex Hershaft. I can never remember his name for some reason. But he survived the Holocaust, and Here, I'll just read it. Dr. Hershaft was born in Warsaw, Poland in 1934 to respected scientist parents. During World War II, he and his family were forced into the infamous Warsaw Ghetto, then into hiding among Christians. His father was tragically captured by Nazis and murdered, while he and his mother Sabina escaped first to Western Europe and then to the United States and Israel, respectively, in the early 1950s. After working on a family member's egg-laying farm during college in the United States and witnessing a religious slaughter back in Israel, Dr. Hershaft began to note similarities between the oppression he had witnessed and experienced during the Holocaust and the oppression of animals. There you go. So, it might be worthy to see his opinion on, comparing the Holocaust with what animals go through and, whether or not we should use the word. You don't have to use the words if you don't want to. It's just don't try and stop other people from using the words. They're just words. They're just tools of language to describe things. You know what I mean? And they're not hate words. They're not hate words like the N word or the F word. They're not hate words. They're just words that describe something. So that's my case on that. There's been so much recent talk about it. Also, if you want to check out my mom, she is a survivor of rape and molestation. If you want to check out her stories, or she just has a video where she talked about it briefly and said, she's okay with using the word rape to describe what animals go through because that's what it is. You can find her video. It's probably a couple weeks old now, but her username is veganzanne, veganzanne, just to hear perspectives of people who are vegan and who do use these words and agree with using these words to describe what animals go through. And it's totally fine if you don't want to use these words and if you disagree with using these words. Before I leave this topic, I just want to read a quote from Dr. Hershaft. Among the similarities are the use of cattle cars for transport and crude wood crates for housing, the cruel treatment and deception about impending slaughter, the processing efficiency and emotional detachments of the perpetrators in the piles of assorted body parts, mute testimonials to the victims they were once a part of. And if you haven't listened to my episode about slaughter workers, I think it's called Paying for Animal Products Equals Paying for Human Rights Violations. Yeah, that's what it's called. Definitely listen to that one when you get a chance, because I do mention in that episode the Milgram experiments and just the way that slaughter workers get PITS, which is perpetrator-induced traumatic stress disorder. It's a form of PTSD, basically for killers. And that there's a lot of comparisons between slaughter workers getting PITS and Nazis. It's just really interesting. And the Milgram experiments talk about how it's just this weird thing of the human psyche where we are willing to inflict violence on others if we're doing it for the purpose of obeying authority, really harsh authority. Just go listen to that episode. I thought I would just mention that. There's also a lot of talk lately about whether or not vegan activists should be intersectional. I prefer the term consistent anti-oppression because I honestly don't know that much about intersectional and what intersectional is. I think it has to do with being consistent anti-oppression and being against all oppression and supporting other movements. But unfortunately, people like Vegan Gains, who I just think is not a good person. I've made a video about him. He tells his large following that sexual consent is basically if a woman says no, it's just her playing hard to get and you can keep pressuring her and that it's not abusive to keep pressuring her. And he gives a false definition of sexual consent to his large audience. And he's also just a bully. He makes fun of people who simply just want people to use their preferred pronouns or their correct pronouns for their gender identity and stuff like that. And he's not a very good person, in my opinion. But people like him and his followers, and unfortunately a large number of vegans, they're very anti-intersectional, and they're very much we can only do activism for the animals, and they're very much against Black Lives Matter and just other issues, and it just doesn't really make sense because humans are animals too, and it just makes more logical sense to be consistent anti-oppression. And look up Vegan Activist Alliance. I'm part of them. I'm not really part of them, but I do things with them, and they are consistent anti-oppression. And basically what that means is for example, they just did a a fridge for homeless people of plant-based food, like a community fridge. That's what it's called. And so that's kind of an example of being consistent anti-oppression. Being against animal cruelty while also being against, like, you know, the systems that lead people to be homeless and go hungry. You know, intersectionals might be asking and pressuring vegan activists to do other kinds of activism, but I really feel like it's not even that they're pressuring them to do other kinds of activism. I think it's more so they're just asking them to stand in solidarity with other movements and other forms of activism, because it just makes sense to. Like, you know, it's so easy as a vegan activist to, you don't have to go to, like, Black Lives Matter marches and stuff, but I think the least you can do is say, like, Black Lives Matter and be in support of it, and just at the very least not be against it. Like, I think that's the main thing that we're asking of you, and I just don't know why being asked is so offensive, because you can say no, like, if you really just want to be, like, anti-human and literally only care about animals, fine, that's your choice, you know what I mean? It's really just about being a true vegan by the definition of veganism, and just not, like, oppressing any groups, whether they're human or not, based on how they look or how much money they have or whatever, because the mindset of all oppression is that some lives matter than others. So it just makes more logical sense to be against all oppression, and there is undeniable interconnectedness of oppression, and some of these people like to pretend and act like that's not a thing, but it is. For example, food racism, the fact that they put all the animal products in the unhealthiest animal products and processed foods and fast food places. Like, the government pays for those places to be in communities of color and impoverished communities. Like, farms spray hog waste onto communities of color and impoverished communities. It is interconnected. Like, oppression is connected, so it just makes more sense to be against all oppression rather than just kind of cherry picking, like, oh, I just feel like only being against oppression of animals. You know what I mean? Like, I know people have jobs and lives. You can't just be an activist for every single movement. I think it's very noble to make animal rights your main cause. I mean, that's my main cause. A lot of the reason for that is just because it has kind of some of the least people speaking up for it, and the animals can't speak for themselves. So that's, you know, those are just a couple of the reasons. And because, you know, veganism would solve so many freaking problems. Like, it would help solve world hunger, climate change, just an endless list of things, pandemics, health, race issues, worker rights issues. Like, you know, it's obviously a very worthy cause for it to be your main cause, but, like, all the intersectionals and consistent anti-oppression people are asking of you, from my interpretation at least, is to just not be like that asshole douchebag who's against Black Lives Matter and who's against other movements and who is like vegan gains and wants to oppress women. That's all. Just, like, be decent and be vegan by the definition of veganism. The other thing that is on my brain is Raleigh Link 14. She is a decently big YouTuber who is an equestrian horse rider, but she calls herself a vegan and she calls herself an equine activist, but she still rides and she promotes riding, and she thinks that it's okay for horses to be bred as long as the professionals are doing it. You might not know this, but I used to ride horses. I rode horses for 10 years when I was a teenager. I even went to Colorado State University for 3 years, majoring in equine science. I went to a horse breeding internship on Blue Mound quarter horses in Nevis, Minnesota. I witnessed cruelty there. It inspired me to quit the horse industry and quit riding and drop out of school all on the spot. There's other podcast episodes where I talk more about this. If you want me to just talk specifically more about, like, my horse story, let me know. I would be more than happy to. It's kind of, like, hard for me to talk about. But anyway, my point in bringing this up is I have a problem with someone calling themselves a vegan and an equine activist while promoting writing and breeding. It's just such a contradiction. Like, this girl is such a walking contradiction. I think there's a lot of pros and cons to her, and I made a YouTube video about it, so definitely check that out. I think it's called Raleigh Riding Horses is Not Vegan, and, yeah, check that out. Support me. Support the YouTube. Oh, I almost forgot. I'm going to do a new fun thing each week as part of the intro, and that is going to be the Troll of the Week. So as I make more YouTube videos and get more views, and maybe just not even only on YouTube, but on any other platform as well, I try to stay off social media. Side note, but social media is really bad for mental health. I literally only go on there to post, and then I delete the app like right after I post. Like, I keep it because I want to keep promoting veganism to like whoever actually sees my shit, but I feel like there's so much like at this point to back up that social media makes us unhappy and isn't good for our brains, and it leads to just comparisons. And anyway, side tangent. As a vegan, I obviously get a lot of trolls. I feel like right now, at the beginning stages of my channel growing, probably at least half of like people who actually watch my videos are just trolls. And they do comment, which is great. I love having them because they help me out. But the troll of the week this week's name is X Shenanigan. So over the summer, when I was like first starting getting more serious about my YouTube channel and stuff, I didn't really know what to post. I posted like a couple of videos about what's in my fridge as a vegan. And I said in those videos, literally, like, I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a dietitian. It's just, this is just to kind of show what could be in a vegan fridge for people who like literally have no clue what, if they want to go vegan and they just have no idea what to buy. And I did one of my boyfriend's fridge, and his fridge is like very healthy, like not a whole lot of processed foods and stuff. But I also did my fridge. I live with my mom, and at the time my mom was buying like a ton of mock meats, mock ice creams, mock pizzas, like mock vegan, vegan pizzas, vegan ice creams. My mom's vegan too. But she was buying just a lot of these processed foods, and I said in my video, like, hey, this is just showing what's in my fridge, but you should really go for whole foods, plant-based. You should really listen to, like, people who know what they're talking about, like Dr. Michael Greger and stuff. And this guy watched the entire, 20-minute video of me showing things in my fridge and time-stamped every single item and said whether or not they were a whole food. And just commented on things and said that, believing Dr. Greger is appealing to authority, that I'm a brainwashed vegan. He called everything that's not like a whole food an engineered food, as if he doesn't eat things that are processed. Like, come on. His little profile picture says, hold on, I gotta zoom in here. It's so little. Going vegan would be a missed steak, mistake. So hilarious. So yeah, I just felt like the dedication really earned this guy to get Troll of the Week. And I responded to him. And part of my response was like, could you timestamp my podcasts? Because that would be great. I love the dedication. In all seriousness, though, I'm not going to make any more videos, related to food. Except for maybe recipes, but I even want to get away from that because I honestly think, the what I eat in a day videos, when people make them and they don't know anything about nutrition or they're not dietitians, it's just, I think that's it's just not responsible and it's not needed, and veganism is not about food, and I want to focus my stuff on animal rights content, Focusing on food all the time and seeing that in your YouTube when you're scrolling along, it can be triggering for if you have an eating disorder, and, it's just not necessary. It's just not really what veganism is about. So I'm going to move away from that. I'm honestly even considering, like, deleting these What's in My Fridge videos for that reason, but I don't know. If you have an opinion on that, let me know. Okay, anyway, so let's have a moment of silence for this week's troll. Let's hope that they go vegan and, find happiness in their heart enough to find better things to do besides trolling people who want to be kind to animals. So, moment of silence for this week's troll. What else do I have going on in my activist life as I sit here and stall, since I still haven't decided what I'm going to talk about yet today? On the 21st, I have a disruption. So look forward to that. I'm actually going to be speaking at this one. I have a speech prepared and everything. Woohoo! Ooh, also, Oatly had a commercial for the Super Bowl, I have come to find out from my mom showing me, because I don't watch that fucking stupid shit. But that's so cool.
Wow, no cow, no, wow, no cow, no, wow, no cow, no.
Okay, so that's basically the commercial. And I left a comment because I'm on the YouTube video. This has 70,000 views on here, and I just said, Darius Animal Cruelty, watch this! And I linked Darius Scary. Hell yeah, I'm such a good activist. Okay, friends, so I actually just got off the phone with the police department that handled my assault case to talk about what kind of charges we're going to be pressing. So, yay! I'm glad that, the police are working with us and taking it seriously. Well, I don't know. I'll update you on how it goes. Now that I've talked to the cop, I think I'm going to end up posting the video soon, like maybe today or tomorrow or the next day or something like that. So please share this video. These two men came up and assaulted myself and another woman and started punching me, like, in the head, and all we were doing was peacefully holding signs in a public area. So on Facebook, my name is Alicia Knoll, Alisia Knoll. Go on there, find my video and share it. Share it on your Instagrams. My Instagram is ALISIADEMI, and of course there's also the Stop the Violence podcast Instagram account. I'm also going to be posting it on my YouTube channel, Alicia Demi, ALISIADEMI. So if you just want to share a YouTube video of it in any way that you can. I just want to spread awareness of just in general, no matter what justice movement it is, like violence being committed against peaceful protesters. Like, that's my purpose for sharing this video. I just want this kind of shitty situation to end up just being a voice against, like, bullying and against assaulting people. I literally, before I came back to finish this podcast, before I talked to the policeman, was on my messenger, because I went on Facebook on my computer to try and think of things to finish talking about for this episode, and I got this, like, bullying message from somebody who's just, like, an anti-vegan, and said, like, that I need to save up some money and fix my nose. And then she just started sending me, like, all these pictures of non-vegan food, and it's just, like, it can be really hard. Like, the bullying as a vegan activist is real, and I think I'm just gonna make that the topic for the rest of this episode and for this podcast. Thanks for bearing with me. But, yeah, the bullying is real, and sometimes it's physical assault, and sometimes in even more extreme cases, it's death, like Regan Russell. I mean, I do want to make one thing clear, though. I will never, like, act like the bullying and stuff that I get as a vegan activist. I will never, like, compare that to what people go through when they're bullied and oppressed because of the way that they're born. Like, people who are not white. people who are not straight, people who are gay, people who are transgender, like any number of things that people could be bullied for just for how they're born or how they look, or things that they can't even change. Like, being a vegan activist is a choice. You can't, like, walk around and see just by looking at me that I'm a vegan activist. And so I would never compare, like, the bullying and the, physical assault sometimes that I go through as an activist to what, those people who are born in such ways go through. Like, I have tremendous privilege. I'm white, I'm cisgendered, I'm straight, like, I am female, so of course I have struggles related to that, but I would never, like, try to downplay the struggles of others. However, I do believe that vegan activists and any activist of any movement, we deserve to have our voices heard about the injustices committed against us and just the negative bias against us, simply because we're doing something different and we're doing something against the grain. Like, our cause of veganism especially is completely positive. It's just to help animals, and it's unjust. It's completely unjust that you have cases like Regan Russell, who was purposely killed and ran over by a slaughter truck driver for peacefully attending a pig vigil. I mean, I have been told, go kill yourself, for just literally commenting about veganism and trying to stand up for animals online. It's insane. Like, I've had verbal abuse hurled at me just for being an activist. Regan Russell never got justice. The slaughter truck driver who ran her over and drug her body the length of the entire truck and didn't even get out of the truck after that. Watch There Was a Killing. It's a documentary. It's free on YouTube. Watch Cave Light Films video about it. I'll link those in the show notes. Like, look into Regan Russell's case if you haven't. The negative bias against animal rights activists is so strong that she didn't get justice, and the police department refused to release the security footage of what happened to her that day in I think Ontario, in the Toronto Pig Save. Speech and protest is literally our First Amendment right in the U.S. And it's also, I don't know, like, what amendment or whatever, because I'm not Canadian, but it's also a right for them. And we should not accept being killed, being punched, being harassed, being verbally abused from people for simply exercising that right. Like, we're not out here holding signs with messages of hate. We're not out here with a hate group against any group of people. We're literally spreading a message of compassion and kindness and just leaving animals alone. It's not hateful at all. Like, we don't deserve this. A lot of vegans, especially vegan activists, are shunned from their family. A lot of them are left out of dinner plans and made fun of, and it's just, there is something here. There is something to bullying. There is, like, a phobia of vegans and of vegan activists. And I don't think it's acceptable. Like, yes, being a vegan and being an activist is a choice, but that doesn't mean, we're doing something positive. We're trying to stand up for a victim. Like, there's no justification for treating us in these ways because of that. It just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. Like, no person who's fighting for a worthy cause, a positive cause, who's just trying to help some group that's being oppressed should ever be killed, assaulted, beat up, or even, I would say, verbally abused and bullied. Like, it just shouldn't be. It's upsetting and it's sad, and it makes you just really, like, question the world, and it makes you, I don't know. It's just, I don't know, man. It sucks. It can be really hard. It can be really hard sometimes to be a vegan, and particularly to be a vegan who actually speaks up for animals, because there is a big difference. I know this podcast episode has been all over the place, but I just saw Earthling Ed's new video. It's called this keeps happening to me. It actually starts out really funny, but the rest of it's really serious. And watching that, it just reminds me, like, no matter how much I'm bullied, no matter if I'm assaulted, no matter what, like, the animals are the victims, and I will never stop being an activist for the animals. I will never let bullying, being assaulted, or anything stop me from being an activist for the animals, because it's just the right thing to do. And it can be hard sometimes, but I'm never gonna stop because it's just the right thing to do. So this video is also about, like, you know, I guess, I don't know if it's just the UK, but I guess they're trying to ban the use of the words milk and meat in vegan, like, mock products, which is really fucking stupid and desperate of the industries. But there's a petition against that at, let's see, the link is stopam171.com. So yeah, definitely sign that petition, and I'll link the video I'm talking about below. So to remind us of why we are doing this, why we are doing this activism, I'm going to play a few clips, you know, that will serve as reminders.
Farmers also inflict horrific mutilations on piglets by amputating their tails and clipping their teeth, all of which is done without anaesthetic or painkillers.
Left-handed, and then go about an inch off the bum,
And to prevent the pigs from cannibalising one another, a behavioural trait that the animals will often resort to when they go insane due to the conditions they're kept in, combined with their high intelligence. Growing fast enough or are sick and injured, they are seen as unprofitable to the industry, so are then killed. This is done in the most cost-effective manner, meaning that often the piglets are slammed against walls, concrete floors, or bludgeoned with metal poles. One of the methods of slaughter for pigs in the UK is the gas chamber, where groups of pigs are herded into metal cages which are then dropped into a chamber that is filled with carbon dioxide. Once inside the chamber, the pigs scream and thrash, fighting for their lives for up to 30 seconds. This method of slaughter is used for UK supermarkets including Tesco, Asda, Sainsbury's, Lidl and Waitrose.
Like humans, cows are strongly maternal beings who form close bonds with their young and must give birth in order to produce milk. On dairy farms, they are forcefully impregnated every year to keep this milk flowing, usually by artificial insemination rather than natural mating, which requires workers to insert their arm into the cow's anus to hold her cervix in place while injecting her with semen collected from a bull. The calves are taken away mere hours after being born so that the milk intended for them can be collected and sold for human consumption. Over the days following separation, the mothers bellow day and night, searching for their calves. They're known to grieve for days or even weeks. The male calves, called bobby calves, are considered useless to the dairy industry because they'll never be able to produce milk. They are kept isolated for 5 days before being herded onto a truck and sent to the slaughterhouse. They can be withheld food for the last 30 hours of their lives. Starved, confused, and desperate for affection, they cry for their mothers from the holding pens of the slaughterhouse, where they'll be killed the following morning. those who avoid the stunner or who are improperly stunned are killed while conscious.
The global demand for eggs, hundreds of millions of chickens are bred into existence, but about half are born male. And since male chickens, or roosters, do not lay eggs, and egg-laying breeds do not grow fast or large enough for economically ideal meat production, they are simply discarded. They are either ground up alive or discarded in garbage bags where they die of suffocation. In other cases, thousands of male chicks will just be dumped into large dumpsters. This is standard practice in the egg industry.
That fish do feel pain. Ultimately, it is easier for us to recognize suffering in an animal such as a pig, who can vocalize their pain. But for marine animals, their suffering may be silent to us, but it still exists for them nonetheless. Fish have also been shown to have stress responses, with their cortisol levels, a hormone that is released during times of stress, becoming raised when they were taken out of water and placed in a bucket. Thousands of hooks on a single line that may be 50 to 100 kilometers long. When fish take the bait, they are likely to remain caught for many hours before the line is hauled in. Fish caught in the wild are dumped on fishing boats and will either die by suffocating, being crushed because of the weight of all the other fish on top of them, or through their internal organs rupturing from the rapid pressure changes during the ascent. Another method of catching wild fish involves gill nets, walls of fine netting in which fish become snared, often by the gills. They may suffocate in the net because with their gills constricted, they cannot breathe. If not, they may remain trapped for many hours before the nets are pulled in. The fish that are still alive when they begin being processed will then die through a combination of suffocation and evisceration, which is where the animals are gutted alive. One Dutch study found that it can take between 55 minutes to 4 hours for various species of fish to die during asphyxiation, and some fish can remain conscious for 20 to 40 minutes after they have been gutted. Aquafarming, which is the equivalent of factory farming.
So I think, as counterintuitive as it may seem, when things get hard as far as us being bullied, harassed, physically harmed, it can be helpful to remind ourselves. The clips that I just played were from Dominion. They were from The Land of Hope and Glory, What's Wrong with Eggs by Aaron Janis, and Is There Actually an Ethical Reason Not to Eat Fish by Earthling Ed. When you remind yourself of the suffering, it kind of just puts things into perspective and just makes you feel like, okay, like this is hard what I'm going through, but it's also nothing compared to what the animals are going through. And I have to keep fighting. I have to keep doing it. Like, take breaks, have self-care, but keep moving forward. I just want to end this episode with a few more clips.
She's sitting right there. There's no bad weather. It's blue skies. It's a sunny day. She has a white head of hair, a black t-shirt, blue jeans, and she's nearly 6 feet tall. She's a tall woman, a former model. And so this argument that, I didn't see her.
He was just angry, and even when we finally called 2 minutes and said, time's up, the way he whipped around the corner, he went so fast. That's why when people say, this was an accident, it's there's no way. He went so fast.
I don't know if it does any good, but I know
it does.
I know doing nothing does no good. Yeah. I knew nothing about the food I was eating or any of that. There was no internet, It was, if it wasn't for Peter Singer's book, Animal Liberation, that was my only insight as to what was going on. Once you open that door as to what's going on, it is just a world of shock. We've been sold a bill of goods our entire lives. Me, my parents' generation. It is shocking, absolutely shocking. The lack of regard for the feelings of our fellow Earthlings. It is shocking.
So those are a couple of clips from the film There Was a Killing, about the death of Regan Russell, who was an activist who was killed just trying to peacefully give water to pigs. And that just now was her speaking. And that's really it. We just do our best, and we don't know if it does any good, but we know that doing nothing does no good. The trucker who killed Regan Russell was cited with careless driving, which is a non-criminal charge. Meanwhile, you juxtapose that to Anita Krajink, I'm probably saying that wrong, but who was charged with criminal mischief, facing up to 10 years in prison for giving water to pigs. This negative bias against animal rights activists is real, and it needs to be addressed, and it needs attention on it. And I don't know exactly how we go about doing that, but I think that how I'm personally going to try and do my little bit here is to post this video of these men who assaulted us and to ask that the listeners share that. I think I'm going to post it so that it'll be out before this podcast episode is out. It sucks. We need to address this problem because we need other people who are already living the vegan lifestyle to feel not scared to start speaking out, because, you know, there's this theory that we only need 3.5% of us to speak out in order to get the movement going. Like, that's the tipping point. And so, you know, there's already, I think, more than enough of that percentage that are vegan at this point. I don't know for sure, but if every vegan was speaking out, I think we would meet that. And it's hard to inspire and encourage people to speak out in the face of, you know, them knowing that they might be shunned by their family, they might be mocked, they might be bullied, they might be assaulted, they might even literally be killed. Like, we need to address this problem. We need more people to feel safe. Like, we need to feel safe. It's unacceptable. And people should not be getting felony charges for rescuing animals just because those animals aren't dogs and cats. I don't think I have anything else to say. I mean, being an activist can sometimes be really, really hard. We just have to still do it for the animals in whatever way that we can without just going totally depressed, you know? And if you're limited in what you're able to do as far as activism, I just ask that you support those of us who do dedicate our lives to this, especially those that are willing to break laws to rescue animals and things like that. Like, you know, at least just don't shun them and mock them and bully them. And yeah, I don't know. Next week, I think, should be less dark, and, you know, I have a lot of ideas for podcasts that won't be as hard of a listen as this one and as some of my other ones have been, but I do appreciate if you actually do listen to this. Like, I do put my heart into this podcast, and I do see it going somewhere very positive. So yeah, I hope you have a beautiful day, and yeah, I don't know what to say. All right. Bye. See you next Tuesday. One more thing. Can we just have another moment of silence for the girl who was calling me names and telling me I need to save up some money and fix my nose, and just like sending me pictures of non-vegan food and just like being just full level like a bully? Let's have a moment of silence for her. Like, may she go vegan someday, and also like find peace within her heart so that she doesn't feel the need to bully others. I think that we're completely valid in being angry and being outraged when we are treated this way, and, you know, at injustices in general. So, like, that's valid, but there's also something to be said of realizing that we can also still have compassion for all humans, even the super, like, evil ones, and realize that as humanity, we are all connected. I saw a YouTube video yesterday about kind of like group identities and pinning certain groups against other groups, and how psychologically it's better to just see all humans as humans in a way. And like they made an argument for just compassion and kindness. And so basically in the video, and I'll link it, it'll be linked, but it was about like a black protester who ended up hugging a Nazi and was like, "Why do you hate me? Why do you hate me?" And until eventually the Nazi guy was just like, "I don't know." And it's a pretty beautiful like clip, and yeah, it's a good video. Check it out. It definitely puts things into perspective. Obviously, it's not always safe to hug the person, especially if they're being violent. Like, I do not think that the dudes who assaulted us would have stopped being angry if I hugged them. But, you know, it's important to keep it in mind and stay balanced and, you know, try and still see the good in humanity. So, yeah. All right. Now I'm really gonna go. See you next Tuesday. Bye. But wait, there's more. I know I always do this shit. Listen, I record this on the Anchor app, and I can't, like, trim clips, really. I can't move clips around. So if I think of something after I've already closed it, I just have to add it on. So sorry. But the thing I wanted to add on is that I forgot to even mention that with Regan Russell's case, there were counter-protesters after her death that started showing up to the vigils, holding signs saying Regan committed suicide, Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself, but Regan Russell committed suicide, just like horrible things, literally showing up to these pig vigils, grilling meat, and shouting and being aggressive toward activists. And there's a lot of videos of this. Just, I don't know, look up Regan Russell counter protests. It's just sad. Like, the negative bias against animal rights activists is so bad that people are literally mocking a 65-year-old woman's death who was a human and animal rights activist and a genuinely good person. And it's just like, it's unacceptable. It's fucked up. It's similar to like how people will mock the victims of, you know, the black victims that are shot wrongfully by police. It's like this whole victim blaming thing is just, it's so toxic. It's so bad. Like, victim blaming sexual assault survivors for their own assault is just endless. Like, stop. That's why we need to be consistent anti-oppression, and please stop victim blaming. Stop bullying. Just try to be a good person. Okay, I'm gonna go now. Bye. Welcome back to the